All right, thanks everyone. Here we go. The presentation from the University of Puget Sound students on aging in place and the role of occupational therapy in preventing falls.
All right, can everyone see the slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so welcome. We are delighted to have this opportunity to present to you today. So for the past year, we've been working on this project. And so what we have is an 80-page research that we're now synthesizing. And so we're hoping it's in a user-friendly way, but one that inspires action to support your community. All right, so the plan for us is to introduce the factors involved in successful aging in place and explore the serious threat falls have on our older adults. Then we'll briefly touch on our research methods, followed by an exploration of the top programs we believe are relevant to the Valley. And then we'll finish off by showcasing the value of occupational therapy. So our plan for today is to run through the presentation, but feel free to use the chat box if you have questions, but we'll just plan on addressing them at the end. Before we get going, are there any questions? All right.
Just so everyone knows, I muted everyone. There's a little background noise, so you can, yeah, if you could use the chat, that would be great.
All right. So the CDC reports that falls are among the leading causes of injury and death for those over 65 and over. Over a third of the adults over this age fall each year, and 20 to 30% of these falls result in serious to moderate injury. So falls can cause broken bones, but also can lead to head injuries. People can also develop a fear of falling, which is a huge area of concern. So let's say a person falls, maybe it doesn't lead to an injury, but then that person begins to develop anxiety, and then they can self-limit themselves, avoid activities. This can lead to isolation as well as deconditioning. And so this just increases their chances of falling. It becomes a self-prophecy, and it's essentially a form of self-sabotage. So falling is a strong predictor of nursing home placement, and accidental falls increase the risk of morbidity, hospitalization, and institutionalization. And so what is Midtown Home's mission? Well, it's to support members to stay in their homes as long as possible and actively engage in their community. So with this in mind, we think that falls should be a high priority as they are the main culprit, threatening members' independence and ability to stay in their homes. So modifiable risk factor is something that can influences the chances of falling. So you've probably heard about, risk factors for developing lung cancer, heart disease, right? Well, we can also think about those risk factors that increase a person's chance of falling. And so modifiable risk factors are elements that can be changed. And for falls, we can break them down into two categories. We have intrinsic, so within the person, and then we have extrinsic, referring to that physical environment. And so the big message here is just that falls are preventable. We want to break that misconception that they are somehow a natural part of aging. They're certainly not, but also there's no easy fix for them. Like many things in life, falls are often due to a combination of factors, and unfortunately, those factors do increase with age. All right, so here's a list of intrinsic factors. As you can see, there's quite a few of them. And I think the most obvious that might come to our mind is decreased mobility. So this can relate to impaired balance, as well as reduction of muscle mass in the body, which naturally occurs with aging. So this makes it harder for a person to catch themselves, say when they start to trip, and to correct themselves. We also have visual impairments. Y'all probably can think of cataracts, glaucoma, diabetic retinopathy. And there's also quite a few of our folks on medications, right? And we just wanted to point out that a lot of blood pressure and depression medication have side effects of lightheadedness, dizziness, even increased urination. So just start to think about those extra bathroom trips happening, in the nighttime. And then we also talked about a fear of falling. And then another one is just depression and timidity. So folks are more likely to engage in risky behavior because they don't want to ask for help, right? So all of these are those intrinsic factors that can be changed. Next, here we have a list of the extrinsic factors. So I think what comes to mind is just like a lot of clutter in the home, those rugs that aren't secured, even pets, right, that like to hang out at your feet in the kitchen. Even improper slippers, like house slippers, can be a big one. And I think a big thing that we wanted to underscore here is just not to get too hyper-focused within the home. Of course, the home is important. We do spend a lot of time there, but hey, we also got to pay attention to how that driveway is like. What's that path to the mailbox, right? That can be really uneven terrain, poor lighting there. And even thinking about those larger public spaces in neighborhoods. Is that supermarket everyone's going to have really poor curb contrast and no one's seeing that. So, you know, it's both within the home, but also we got to think outside too. And so now I'm going to pass it on to Colleen.
Great, thank you. So as Sarah has discussed, there are many factors that could support or interfere with one's desire to remain in their home as they age. This slide just condenses that information into the areas that allied health professionals can address to best support those aging in place, as indicated by our research. As you can see, this is a very holistic view of the individual and includes both physical and mental health. And so addressing these areas can take the form of providing education, helping make any necessary changes, and providing group programming. And so just a quick overview of what OT is and its role in aging in place. Occupational therapy takes a holistic approach to find the best fit between the individual and the environment. So practitioners work with aging adults to promote the continued safe performance of daily activities at home and within the community. This can apply to both everyday tasks like washing the dishes and those more meaningful occupations like valued hobbies and spending time with loved ones. OTs can also make referrals to other healthcare providers and specialists, as well as write letters of justification to insurance companies for adaptive equipment or home modifications. And so this leads us to our research question. We formulated this question at the beginning of the research process, and it guided our search for articles. Our focus was on the role of OT in prevention and wellness to address those risk factors that may impact independence. So we searched 4 research databases and 8 journals. The journals were specific to OT or topics on older adult health. To narrow the scope, we established some keywords. We also established inclusion and exclusion criteria to determine which articles to keep for review. And so based on our research question, the individuals had to be 60 years or older, community dwelling, and treatment had to be within the scope of OT. Articles were excluded if the study included those with diagnoses that impact cognitive functioning or mobility. So things like dementia or other neurological disorders. Our initial search of the available research yielded 2,377 articles. And of these, we reviewed 138 and 42 met our criteria and were retained. So as we discuss the research findings, you'll hear us refer to levels of evidence. This refers to the types of studies involved. So a way to interpret this is that the higher the level of evidence, the more likely the result of the study is due to the actual intervention that was being explored. However, this phrasing does not necessarily reflect on the value of the findings. So if something is referred to as low level, it doesn't mean that those findings should be disregarded. It just means that the study lacked the inclusion of those more rigorous types of studies like randomized control trials. And so this is how we organized the 42 articles that were retained. Multifactorial means that the intervention involved more than one element. So for example, this may be group education paired with a home visit. Education often pertained to medication management, fall risk factors, community mobility, home safety, and physical exercise. Group just means that the intervention involved a group of participants. Individual means it targeted one individual or their spouse or caregiver. So home-based interventions addressed the home environment and the performance of activities within the home. These involved making recommendations for home modifications and adaptive equipment, the assessment of home hazards, as well as the assessment of the manner in which the individual performed activities of daily living, like such as dressing, bathing, toileting, and their functional mobility. So this is moving about the house, use of a walker, transferring from a wheelchair to a toilet or a car. And then lastly, there's exercise. So while many of the studies that we looked at included exercise within the interventions, exercise programs were studies in which exercise was the sole component of the intervention. So based on the findings of our research and the discussions that we had with Jan about relevancy to Met-How at Home, we decided to highlight these 5 falls prevention programs. We feel these are the most applicable to the unique context of Met-How at Home, and we'll now take some time to talk about each one. So first up is Matter of Balance. Matter of Balance is an established falls prevention program that has been implemented all over the country. It is designed to reduce the fear of falling and increase activity levels among older adults. There is moderately low evidence found that the program reduces falls and improves safety awareness, but going back to those levels of evidence, despite the low level studies involved, these findings are still valid. Participants in Matter of Balance programs were found to improve in strength, mobility, and balance, as well as social activity and engagement. They saw reductions in fear of falling, incidence of falls, as well as fall-related fractures. And in addition, Matter of Balance programs have been found to reduce annual medical costs by $938. This included a reduction in costs related to unplanned hospitalization, skilled nursing facilities, and home health. And so Matter of Balance classes involve a small group of 8 to 14 people led by 2 coaches. They can occur in person or virtually. In person, it's 8 2-hour sessions, so 1 session per week for 8 weeks, or 2 sessions per week for 4 weeks. The virtual option is 9 2-hour sessions. And the first session provides an overview of the needs of the remaining 8 sessions. And so sessions involve group discussions as well as exercise. Some topics of discussion include fear of falling and reducing fall risk through problem solving, skill building, and assertiveness training. And participants also develop an action plan for ongoing exercise, reducing those risk factors and changing those behaviors that contribute to falls. So some considerations about implementing a Matter of Balance program. Classes are led by 2 coaches. The coaches can be volunteers or paid positions. They can be medical professionals or non, but they must be certified. So the certification process involves 1 8-hour training to become certified and then 2.5 hours of training per year to retain the certification. The cost of coach training is $160 per person, and this includes the coach manual. Something to note is that I got this information from an organization called Sound Generations in Seattle, and so there may be some variation in pricing between organizations. But coaches receive training from master trainers, and something to consider is that there is a certified Matter of Balance master trainer in Wenatchee. Other considerations are that there are grants available to implement a Matter of Balance program, and groups have received funding to implement a Matter of Balance program along with a SAIL course. You can also partner with local medical groups. So for example, a local medical provider can apply for funding for a Matter of Balance program, and then that is then accessible to Met-How at Home community members. Lastly, one big benefit to Matter of Balance is the virtual option, which increases accessibility. So this means that participation will not be negatively impacted by things like inclement weather, and that the community members who cannot leave their home can still participate. And so now Danielle is going to take over to talk about stepping on.
Right, thank you, Colleen. Okay, so the next program we will be talking about today is Stepping On. So like Matter of Balance, Stepping On is another established fall prevention program. It was originally developed in Australia, but has been implemented across the US thanks to the Wisconsin Institute of Healthy Aging. It is a program that is designed for older adults who are living at home and either concerned about falling or have already experienced one. We found moderate strength of evidence to support the efficacy of stepping on, with one article reporting a 31% decrease of overall falls. Additional benefits to stepping on are the high levels of reported follow-ups, where participants either maintained the exercise they learned during the program or followed up with healthcare providers, such as OTs, to receive additional in-home services. So Stepping On is a 7-week multifactorial program, which covers a wide range of intrinsic and extrinsic factors, like Sarah mentioned earlier. So each week for 7 weeks, the participants will meet for 2 hours to discuss different topics such as home hazards, community safety, proper footwear, and the role of vision in falls, as well as medication management. A key to Stepping On success as a program is its community involvement. On top of encouraging peer-to-peer storytelling, each week, different members of the local healthcare community are recruited to act as guest speakers and help share their unique background for the day's topic. So in order to get Stepping On implemented in the Methow Valley, 2 trainers who have a background working with either an aging population or who are in healthcare providers, such as an OT, are required to get training. Training can be completed in person or online for a total of $1,500. And so in addition to the cost of training, there's an additional licensure fee of $3,250, which will last for 3 years. The cost of the licensure also gives the trainers access to materials and the support that they need to make sure that there is successful implementation of the program. Some other considerations when deciding if you want to implement Stepping On as a program are that in addition to the 2 trainers, in order to achieve a high fidelity, 4 guest speakers from allied health professions must be recruited. The creators of the Stepping On program recommended practitioners such as a podiatrist or a dietitian. This requires an effort on the program coordinator's part to make sure that these guests are available during the session time. And now I will hand it off to Lauren to talk about Capable.
Thank you, Danielle. So the Capable program, which is known as Community Aging in Place, Advancing Better Lives for Elders, not only emerged as a promising study in our research, but it was also further underscored as Jan had relayed her enthusiasm for this program's relevancy to the needs of Methow at Home. It was developed by the Johns Hopkins School of Nursing, and Capable is a client-driven, home-based program aimed at helping low-income older adults age in place. The program uses a multidisciplinary team approach consisting of 3 professions, an occupational therapist, registered nurse, and handy worker to address client goals as it relates to their health and lived environment. So 2 studies examining the outcomes of Capable found moderate strength for reducing activity of daily living disability and improving safety and confidence in participants' ability to manage their home environment. There are currently over 35 Capable sites across the country, 8 of which are based in rural communities. And research outcomes have shown that the implementation of Capable has yielded more than $30,000 in medical cost savings per $3,000 invested into each participant of the program, which is driven by reductions in both inpatient and outpatient expenditures. So furthermore, one study done on a population of low-income older adults on Medicaid and Medicare who participated in Capable found that 75% of participants improved their health, self-care over the course of the 5 months program. So the program provides 10 visits to the client's home over a 5-month period. Each visit is 1 to 1.5 hours duration. An occupational therapist can make up to 6 visits. A registered nurse can make up to 4 visits. And the handy workers' visits are determined on a case-by-case basis. The OT's role is to screen and assess the older adult's home and physical needs. And the OT also collaborates with the older adult to set and achieve functional goals. The nurse's visits focuses on identifying key health issues and risks, along with pain and medication management. And the handy worker is called upon to perform home modifications based on risk factors identified by the occupational therapist.
And so home modifications have a budget of approximately $1,300 per client for repairs and supplies. The overarching purpose of these visits is to help clients learn and increase awareness of safe behaviors to prevent injury, foster problem solving, and build skills that will support them with aging in place. Examples include improving pain and medication management, applying fall prevention strategies, enhancing self-efficacy to address challenges, and improving self-care. Some considerations for implementing Capable include connecting with the Johns Hopkins University Capable team to establish the partnership with the organization. Funding will need to be secured for startup, and the Capable team can provide guidance on identifying needed resources. An initial license runs for 2 years with lower annual licensing fees thereafter to continue access to staff training and updated materials. Licensed occupational therapists and registered nurses are required to take an online clinician training through the Hopkins Capable Training Program, which includes 10 to 14 hours of online learning modules that results in a certification of completion. The initial one-time implementation package fee covers program readiness and support, and additional considerations after implementation may involve identifying staff to run the program, such as a program manager, administrators, and data personnel. So now I will pass it over to Sarah to discuss additional noteworthy fall prevention programs.
All right, so now we're going to switch gears and look at exercise programs. And so this first one is aimed at an individual in the home. So this one's called LIFE, stands for Lifestyle Integrated Functional Exercise. A little bit of a mouthful, but it had strong evidence. And so studies for that one revealed statistically significant results for decreasing falls and also high rates of adherence. And so it's really fabulous about this LIFE program is that it's all about building exercises into a person's routine. So unloading the dishwasher can be an opportunity to work on strength, or brushing your teeth to improve balance. And so we know that it's difficult to get folks to stick to traditional exercise programs. It can often feel like an extra chore. And the CDC estimated that only 12% of those age 65 and older engage in strength training. And so we think that the LIFE program is a good option to consider, especially for folks that may face transportation issues, may not feel comfortable doing a group exercise. And it's can meet members where they're at. You know, changing one's behavior is a tall order. And so thinking about that readiness for change, the LIFE program would be a good resource for the Valley to have. And now moving on to group exercise. Our research found moderate to strong evidence for group exercise. And research looking at Tai Chi had some of the stronger evidence for group exercise. It improves strength, gait, balance, and also observes high rates of adherence and significant decrease in falls. Many individuals enjoy the mindfulness aspect and that body awareness that they cultivate, which they then bring throughout their day. Regardless of whatever group exercise the Valley offers, we do want to highlight a few considerations. So just ensuring to make it social and fun to keep people coming back. It's important for that group leader to be fairly charismatic and to foster those relationships. Even having some snacks or tea afterward to really drive in that component, that social component, and to keep people motivated. All right. And so now we are sharing the Washington State's Department of Health and the National Council on Aging's current approved list for programs. So as you can see, we've got Matter of Balance, we've got that Tai Chi Guan program, we've got Capable, Stepping On, as well as SAIL, which we know has been offered in the Valley before. So those have all been approved by these two entities. And so I also wanted to point out that Washington State does also offer scholarships for those wanting the Tai Chi Guan program training. And we did want to put on your radar a few more resources. There is, for Washington State, the Older Adults Fall Prevention Coalition. And it's made up of participants from academia, elder care, healthcare. I know Aerometau has been mentioned on their policy, on their action plan. And so it was formed in 2018. And so they came up with a 5-year action plan. And we wanted to point out a couple of goals that we thought would be really pertinent. And so there's goal 3K, which involves establishing of a falls referral system in geographically diverse communities. So progress was noted for this one with Aerometau. And we believe that with stronger communication with those first responders and primary care physicians, Met-Out at Home may be able to benefit if local hospitals see what an issue this is and maybe hold regular community health screenings. And then y'all can piggyback on that event. There's also goal 4H, which is exceptionally pertinent. It's about holding trainings for these programs in rural/underserved areas. So in 2019, they actually held 9 trainings, and that included that Matter of Balance, where we have that master trainer up in Chelan County. And of course, COVID happened, so that all came to a screeching halt. But I do think that this is something to really keep an eye on and take advantage of, because they were doing all those same programs that we talked about. So we could take advantage of that. There's also wanted to share some information about federal level funding. So the ACL provides grants to nonprofits to fund falls prevention programs. And there's an example that we found that they awarded almost $300,000 to Stanford Medical Center in South Dakota to implement that Matter of Balance and SAIL in partnership with medical centers around their state for a 3-year period. And then Lauren also just found some information on Capable that she'll share.
Yeah, so I had a recent discussion with the Director of Strategic Partnerships for Capable, and we were just discussing, fundraising options for the program. Typically, this is done through partnerships with local agencies that will best help establish the funding resources to implement this large-scale program. So accountable care organizations such as North Central Accountable Community of Health, or area agencies on aging, such as Aging and Adult Care of Central Washington, and even housing development agencies like Habitat for Humanity International may provide additional aid and support to implement a program into the village model. And actually, as of recent, Habitat for Humanity has partnered with Capable to start a program in the greater Seattle area. So all of this is to say that we feel there are funding opportunities on both the state and federal level, and that the Valley could really benefit from once everyone decides to move forward. There's additional information on our drive as well, if anyone's interested. But now we'll be transitioning to discuss the impact that OT can make in supporting the members of Met-Out at Home. So one of the defining qualities that make the occupational therapy profession unique is the holistic approach to treating the whole client. OTs are especially trained to gather and analyze information on the factors unique to each client, such as their roles, habits, routines, and lived environment. This allows them to effectively personalize recommendations for their clients, utilize strategies that encourage participation and improve quality of life. OT is distinct for being client-centered, meaning that the aim is to understand what the client needs or wants to do. Incorporating the OT lens into treatment has been proven to be valuable. For example, in 2 studies that examined the outcomes of a single nurse-led fall education and home modification visit, reduction in falls was not found to be significant. But similar to our other findings, this suggests that inclusion of other health disciplines such as OT may be more effective in reducing falls and fall risk. So the emphasis in OT training is the understanding that one size does not fit all, meaning the value lies in truly honoring each client's unique circumstances. Through collaboration with the client, OTs are able to support them in achieving their goals and maintaining their quality of life. And to highlight further, OTs play a vital role in the home setting. When considering how OT services can best support the Med-Tau at home community, there are a variety of ways OTs can promote aging in place. OTs have the training to monitor and assess for various health factors that include physical, cognitive, and psychosocial factors. And additionally, OTs have specially trained, they're specially trained in environmental analysis to understand the supports and barriers to participation. This allows them to provide the necessary recommendations for modifications to the home that will decrease fall risk, which the OT must then justify to insurance companies in order to receive coverage, which leads to those cost savings. And furthermore, OTs provide relevant education to the clients and their caregivers and can connect them with local community resources for additional support. Understanding that one's autonomy and independence are highly valued, OTs are skillfully positioned to support individuals in their home. And so Danielle will now elaborate on the factors that support aging in place.
Right, and so this is a slide that we actually had earlier in the presentation, but we wanted to visually show you how, like Lauren described, occupational therapists can really address all of the things listed here. Like we said, our profession can play a vital role in fall prevention because we are trained to look at the whole person, including their environment. This is something that other professions can often overlook. This leads us into another option for Med-Tau at home, which we wanted to briefly talk about. So some of our research also highlighted the efficacy of holding a yearly screening event or health fair related to falls and fall prevention. Its intent would normalize talking about falls within the community, as well as providing resources. A program such as this, held in the Med-Tau Valley, could help catch those who are at risk for a fall before it occurs. After a person has one fall, the likelihood of it happening increases. So on this slide here are some of the modifiable risk factors that could be addressed as part of a health fair. And say, some participants aren't available to come one year, but maybe they hear about it from a friend, or maybe they know someone who fell that year. They might be more inclined to come that following year that it's held. Basically, we just wanted to put a little bug in your ear about the idea of a health fair event in addition to a more rigorous fall prevention program. So looking ahead, there is a possibility for one of us from our class could come to the Med-Tau Valley for our doctoral capstone project. This would happen in January 2023 and last for about 14 weeks. And so with that, we would partner with MA and help establish either one of these fall prevention programs, or possibly even help organize something like a health fair. Additionally, we have also collected all of our research and everything that we've presented today and organized them into a Google Drive for you, which we'll be sending to Jan and Ma at the end of our presentation today. So in this drive, you will find everything from flyers about the programs to flyers you can actually hand out to people you're wishing to have participate in the programs, to detailed cost breakdowns, and then all of the contact information to how to actually begin applying to host one of these programs and go through finding the training costs and everything. So in addition to this, we are also mailing a binder with a physical copy of all this information to Jan to be shared with the team. All right, so that brings us actually to the end of our presentation today. We wanted to open up the floor to any questions. I see a couple have already been asked in the chat.
Yeah, I can address some of those questions related to, how long have capable sites been in operation? There was a pilot study done in 2011. And so after seeing those outcomes, I believe that's when, I'm not sure where they implemented their first site, but it's been about over a decade. And then in terms of the capable license, the contact for the capable program did send out a cost breakdown sheet, which is in the Google Drive, but I also believe that it's about, for the pilot project, it's about $6,000 for one registered nurse and occupational therapist, which includes that online training, their license to provide capable for 2 years, and then kind of follow up resources for the clinicians as well. And Jim, I see you have a question. Oh, sorry, there's one more. Discussion of coverage of OT services via Medicare. We didn't go too in depth, just based on the restrictions of our meeting duration. There was a lot of information that was shared, but my contact did talk about Medicare Advantage plans, and just to compare those to the typical fee-for-service Medicare beneficiaries. So I could definitely reach out again and see information I could provide on that. But Medicare Advantage does provide coverage for non-medical supplies too, needs in the home.
Wow, that was just amazing. I see that Jim has his hand up here.
Yeah, first off, that was a really excellent overview. It's extremely helpful for me to kind of get the full breadth of programs and approaches that you all have uncovered. So thank you for that. The first question I have, the capable versus the life programs, they both are seemingly very individualized. I don't know at the moment. I was wondering if any of you could give me a little bit more help understanding any of the key differences between those two approaches, if they so exist.
Yeah, the life program. So that's the one about like building in those little exercises into a person's routine. So yeah, you're right. It's very individualized. It's going to be one-on-one, but it's also only like each booklet. So there's a trainer booklet and then another booklet that has handouts, and they're each like $20. So it's really about how much energy y'all have if you designate a person who wants to do that. So I think there's more flexibility with that. And so it might just be something to have in your toolkit, right? But it might not apply to everyone.
Is there anything that you can pull out of the overall look at all the programs that might say something about how you might stage an approach to doing this in general across the community like ours? Would do you start at a particular group level of programs and then gradually identify people that more want to go on their own and drill a little deeper on helping themselves, or any thoughts come out of this along those lines?
I can speak for the Capable program. So for Capable, there's actually, in order to receive services, a client has to present some type of disability with ADL. So there is a screening involved that the OT does, and they will conduct an assessment and an evaluation of the client in the home. One thing to note for the Capable program is that it's very client focused. So the client is the one to develop the goals with the OT support. So the client is kind of facilitating how those sessions run. And then the OTs utilize their lens and kind of see what they can adapt in the environment for the client. And then the nurse comes in, provides those pain, medication management strategies, and overall kind of health evaluation. In addition to having that handy worker come, which would be contracted from the site to kind of perform those modifications as well. So there is a budget for that too.
Okay, thank you.
But I think, Jim, some of the larger sort of mapping out what road to go down, that really ends up boiling down to like, we would have to do a needs assessment. It's like having different tiers, whether you have like a group education and then you're kind of catching people, normalizing the topic, and then you can kind of red flag some participants and be like, hey, we also have this other thing. So it is kind of multi-pronged as to how you catch people. So yeah, I think that needs assessment, what makes sense for your members. There's no guidebook.
Yeah, because everybody has their own particular learning styles. And so it's trying to make sure you've got them aligned with the program that's going to work better for them on this. Okay, that's helpful. Thanks.
I think also if you do decide to do something like a health screening fair or a health fair, that is where you could kind of judge the interest of the community and kind of see if people are more interested in these individualized programs or into the more group. And you can even, you know, have a little bit of everything, have, yeah, I think the health fair would be a good way to kind of start getting that from their community.
Another question about capable. It sounded like it is pinpointed for lower income folks. Does that mean that someone has to be on Medicaid in order to be eligible for the capable program?
In terms of eligibility, I don't believe they necessarily have to be on Medicaid. But in terms of like supporting kind of funding, cost, and coverage, there would be a benefit to that.
Mm-hmm. And then it seems like the matter of balance is, you know, being implemented in North Central Washington and a couple different places. And so that would be interesting to go check out. And are they linked with SAIL? Like, is SAIL utilized within that program? Because we are, we're about to relaunch after, you know, 2 years off for COVID, twice a week SAIL classes here in Twist, but that's going to start in mid-May. And I was just, yeah, I saw SAIL on the slide, but I was not clear what the connection was between those two programs.
My understanding is that they can just work in conjunction for like better benefit and a little bit more like comprehensive coverage. So matter of balance, a lot of it's because of that like kind of discussion component. A lot of that is just helping the individual like problem solve what they would do if they fell, how they can go ahead and change some of those behaviors and things like that, as well as working on some of those exercises. So I believe they just sort of overlap really well with one another, but are not necessarily like consistently linked together.
Great.
Well, and Colleen, I think I heard you mention grant funding for the Matter of Balance program training. Can you direct us towards that source? That would be great. I also want to say thank you to everyone for a really great presentation. I'm glad that it's being recorded so I can go back and watch it again. So thank you for that. And I also want to say, as a former volunteer and employee of Arrow MedHealth for 18 years, that, you know, seeing that falls is a number one thing that we would address in elderly folks. And so it's been, we're well aware of what's been going on, and we do falls assessment. I say we loosely, I'm retired from there, but we have done falls assessments in those situations to determine, you know, what was the cause of the fall? Was it medical? Was it environmental? So I really appreciate the work that you've done in following that path, because it is so critical. So thank you.
But yes, on that note about grant funding, we do have all that information in the drive available for you. And we can, Sarah, do you mind screen sharing that last slide? So yeah, so this is just screenshots of what, so the first image is kind of the initial page that you'll go to when you go into the drive. You then select one of the programs, and then that takes you to all of the information about that program. So you can see information on cost and benefits, different flyers that you can use. And then you can go within each one. And so then you'll see that like that screenshot is just of the different flyers. And then the last image is of one of those flyers that you can use. But so for each of the programs, we did break it down with kind of a broad overview, all the contact information that you may need of what we were able to get to, and then also funding options and things like that.
Great. That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
And we will be sharing all of that information. We have to just get whatever email address is most applicable so that everyone can have access to this drive. We just have to like share on Google Drive with you so that you have access to it. And then we should be mailing the physical copy on Monday, I believe.
Great. So if we were to, if one of you chose to do your capstone project, and what would we need to be doing to just prepare to host a student, and just what does that entail more?
To be honest, I'm not entirely sure either. We are about to go into our field work, like our clinical placements, for about 6 months. And so then we start the capstone after that. I know that we will be kind of plucking away at all of the things that we need to put in place over that 6 months. So I know Jan's been in touch with Amy Sadhu, correct? Yeah. And so Amy Sadhu is kind of overseeing the entire capstone process. And so students are working with her to figure that out. But we are also the first doctorate class to come through. So we're kind of guinea pigs, and you would also be a guinea pig. So we'll kind of learn together, I think, is the answer to that question.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, we would find housing and come up with a defined objective and together, or
I think together. I think it also is totally unique to the placement and kind of the aim of the capstone project too.
Jan, I think you're on mute if you're trying to talk.
Oh yeah.
There. Oh. Hey, Colleen, I understand what the intent is of the capstone project. Can you do an overview, because it's an interesting application, I think, after you get out of the clinicals, and what you would be providing communities?
It sounds like it can be totally unique, whatever the student kind of decides. So in our case, if one of us were to work with you all, we could do that needs assessment to figure out like what program works best for you, for your community specifically. We could work to implement that program. And so actually hosting one of those programs for the length of time. We wouldn't even necessarily need to be on site. So if you wanted to go with one of those virtual options, one of us could even be wherever we are in the country and still leading a program in the Valley. We could work with you on grant funding to like put someone in place and like implement it long term. One consideration I had for you all was kind of developing like an educational module so that it can both be applied, I think, to our curriculum, because I feel like that's lacking, like fall prevention and like a really detailed view of aging in place is just a really small piece within our curriculum. So I think it would be beneficial for this information to go back to UPS as well as other OT programs if possible, but also for the next person that takes over. And so it could be a continued student relationship where like you kind of continue to work, because your organization is going to continue to evolve and change, and needs are going to change each year. So having that like dynamic relationship, I think, is important to keep in mind. So yeah, it can be a number of things. I think that experience can be a little bit of a free-for-all, which is exciting and terrifying.
So it's 15 weeks, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's the length of a semester. Yeah.
Okay, length of a semester. Okay, great.
And I just had one more question about the LIFE program. I wasn't clear. Like, it sounds it sounds like that isn't as much of a certification program situation. It's more of a resource.
Or is that the one that you need to be an OT to implement it? Is that right, to go in and work the individual?
For the LIFE program?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's recommended, but it's not a deal breaker.
Okay.
So it generally tends to be OT, PT, or some sort of exercise person, but it's not necessary.
Okay.
It's a lot of flexibility with that one, but it is that sort of individual option.
Well, fantastic. Any other questions from anybody else?
I just wanted to say thank you for such a great presentation. That was amazing and great resources.
Very motivating to have, just all your work put before us. And I think that this will be a really important conversation, and could, certainly create a real change in our community to address things more holistically. So thank you.
And I have to tell you that I am just absolutely thrilled. You guys have just nailed it, because though you've done the hard work, and I'm so excited to be able to present this to individuals that I talked within the Valley Arrow Metao, the the Jamie's Place Assisted Living, the medical providers. I'm sorry no one could be here, but I think with this additional information, I mean, we can just now take the next step, and it's a doable. I think we could really make an impact. So it truly is. It exceeds my expectations when we came up with the topic a year ago. It's really one of those no-brainers now, and yeah.
Well, and I'd like to say thank you, Jan, for being, all over this and engaged and keeping us engaged as a board and staff to really want to have this happen. And so thank you for that.
It's been a really fun end to my career. Absolutely my career.
I guess I would be, just for fun, I would be interested in hearing if any of the students came out of this with some ahas from the research that they didn't necessarily anticipate going into it. Anything that really surprised you, or was it all sort of what you thought you were going to find out going in?
I think for me, there wasn't like a big aha moment, because it just makes sense. It's a very like intuitive thing. But I think seeing some of the numbers, it's just pretty astounding. And you had mentioned this earlier, or when we met last week, just about like, how do you get those like younger people to kind of start working, exercising and taking care of themselves to prevent it. And so I think that is such a valuable thing to look into kind of next, is how you start that transition, just to keep people at home.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I had a question. Looking at the SASH report, like 30% of the Valley population is going to be above 65 in 2025. And so how does that compare in terms of the general population, either rurally or urban, in terms of the concentration of people in that age group in this valley?
I did share the forecast map for all counties in Washington in the Google Drive. And so like the darker it gets, I want to see if I can pull it up, because it is increasing, but at the same time, it's increasing everywhere. We're just having a lot of that baby boomer generation getting there. But it is, going to, I wonder, so for 20, yeah, it does increase quite a bit, but it's not going to be a great share.
Wow.
Do you see? So this is 2040. So it does go up. Before that, we have 2035. So it's just that steady more and more and more. And so if I go down, we were at 2040, and then that's the last one that they have. But it goes, this is from the Department of Health. I don't want to make anyone nauseous by scrolling too high.
So that's 65 plus, is that correct?
65 plus. So that's what that is.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just up and up. But yeah, I have that all in the drive so you could look at it more carefully. But yeah, Washington, Oregon, yeah, it's just, we're getting there.
Yeah, because I mean, there's just so many people that move here because of the beauty, the recreation of it. And so we have this high proportion of people that are aging. Yeah, it's there's a lot of potential here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Abby, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I had a question as well. I heard you say on one of the programs that there was a prerequisite for clients struggling with those activities of daily living. Is that for all of them, or is there an age requirement to participate?
Yeah, that was for the Capable program. So, the organization may have, a certain amount of individuals over 60 living there, but the individual would have to qualify to utilize the services of the program by having a disability. I'm just considering like the costs involved as well. But in terms of age, I don't think there was an age limitation, but the program is geared towards individuals 60 and up.
And I think for the stepping on and matter of balance, I don't believe there's an age requirement, but again, we were only looking at those programs in terms of being geared towards older adults. And because some of those programs are a little smaller in size, and it also may just be targeting the people in most need. So,
Right.
So you don't need to have necessarily any impairments in ADL functioning and things like that, but it's probably more beneficial for certain individuals.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I was just thinking about people who might be looking at it as a prevention where they're not quite there yet needing it, but
I mean, that would be ideal. Prevention is always kind of the key.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
When you look at reimbursement, if anything is reimbursement driven, you have to have some data that's saying there's been a change. And that can be a change in balance. It can be change in daily activities of what someone's able to do or interested or not fearful of doing. And that can drive reimbursement for the positive. So they may be okay with their dressing, grooming, but they may not be leaving the house very often because of their fear of falling. So that is then reimbursement would be covered at that point.
Okay, wonderful. I want to, try to stay true to our time frame. So let's we'll be in touch. And yeah, thanks so much to our board and Abby and Dorothy for coming today. Dorothy had to leave, and we're just so appreciative of all of your time and energy to the four of you. And for this support. So thank you so much. Yeah, great presentation.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Now tell me who is coming next year, which of you? Ask us every time. Okay, we'll find housing. Anyone really interested?
I am definitely considering it. Yeah.
Okay.
I do have my list of 4,000 ideas that are all not related at all, but I am very interested in like program implementation. And I think we had mentioned earlier, I am also interested in like kind of inserting things like grief support and end of life planning into programs as well.
Yeah, we have a lot of that happening.
Yeah. So again, I want to offer my second room to whoever wants to come and visit during the really beautiful time of year in the summertime. So I'm very serious. You know, it's just beautiful now. And if any of you guys want to come and stay for a few days, you're welcome to. Okay. Love it. And you can meet the rest of the folks here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jan. Let's.
Okay. Oh, we're done.
Yep.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks. Yep.
Thank you.
Good work, you guys.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.